Alrighty, so previously in a video I mentioned something about doing board modifications. We're gonna start kind of getting into that. One kind of thing that I've always had an issue with in the most recent years is trying to find a board that just synergizes well with me. Either I don't like this or I don't like that. I'm just being really picky, and this is what we call a madness. I've been having this board madness for a really long time, and I'm trying to find my perfect shape, and my thought was, well, what if I could just buy any shape and modify it to be whatever shape I wanted? And it's not that hard. I mean, all you need is a jigsaw. I happen to own a CNC router, so that's even easier for me. But now I'm kind of on a quest to figure out exactly what my perfect shape would be. And that's kind of what we're gonna break down here. Over the last 2 years, I've saved every board that I've really liked, and we're gonna go through, we're gonna measure them all. I already did all that, and basically we're just gonna go through, talk about each shape, and I'm gonna figure out exactly where my shape should be based on what I have. All right, so first one in the stack. I actually have a brand new one of these right up behind me, but this is the Almost Tyson Bowerbank. Now, I bought this board originally because Tyson's from Utah and I just wanted to support, right? I ended up really liking the way the board skated. Not specifically as like a twin tail type of board, but more in a sense of I really liked the way the specific side that I favored skated, as well as the dimensions. So going over it, it's pretty simple. It's got a 14 wheelbase, 6.8 nose, 6.6 tail, 6.25 width, and 31.5 length. Now, I really favored the nose on this, and I think the biggest reason for that is because the nose is a bit more mellow than the tail, so I wasn't missing my pop as much on the nose, as well as the wheelbase is nice and short because I'm a short guy. The overall length wasn't super long, as well as it was only an 825. 825 seems to be kind of like where I like to sit. I really was a fan of the control with that board, and I was a fan of the way I was able to pop with the nose of that board, which is why this one's on the list. So this is one of those Panther graphics that Chris Cole had, and I skated this for a while, and it was one of my favorite boards, which is interesting. I feel like it was a little too circusy for me. I felt like I had a hard time being stable, as well as I felt like I had a hard time catching certain flip tricks and kind of taking advantage of the real estate of the board, because the real estate of the board is not as much. So the wheelbase is a 13.875, a bit shorter than the Almost, but I think that's why I liked the responsiveness of it, because the nose and the tail were both 6.6s. Now, this was not advertised as a twin tail board, but it skated so much like a twin tail board. It's finally nice to confirm my theory, because I was looking at this one in the shop and I was like, that looks like a twin tail. I'm gonna buy it because it's really small and it looks like a twin tail. Measuring it now, I was pretty right. Overall, it felt really good, like a twin tail, and it was really responsive. I think for really technical stuff, this kind of would have been the board I want. The width is only 8, so it's really easy to flip and spin around, and the length is 31.6, so a little shorter again. All right, next on the list, we have a pizza. Now, my buddy actually bought me this board for my birthday one year, and I was really hyped on it. This was when I started skating twin tails, and it felt like a twin tail. It skated really well. It was one of my favorite boards. Skated super well. It felt super nice. It was really responsive. Looking at the wear patterns now on the board, I can definitely tell I favored one side of the board without really feeling like it. I was favoring the nose quite a bit, which tends to be a thing. But this is kind of an oddball for this list, because this is the biggest board out of them all, aside from a couple of measurements. So the wheelbase is a 14.06. The nose was 6.75 inches and the tail was 6.5 inches. So there's a whole 1/4 inch difference between the nose and the tail, but it's really hard to tell just looking at it. It's an 8.5 width and a 32 even length. Oddball board. I really loved it. This is like a short and stubby board. Like it's short and it's fat. That's all there is to it. I did favor one end, but I skated both ends really well. And I think that's partially due to the kick angle is slightly different on each side, or the way the nose and the tail are shaped. I think this is one of my favorite nose and tail shapes out of every board I've ridden. This is the Alien. So let's start with the dimensions. The dimensions, it's 14.25 wheelbase. The nose and tail are both 6.75 inches. The width is 8.25 and the length is 32.37. So it's a bit longer The nose and tail shape is a bit more square. It is a bit thinner than the pizza board. The nose and the tail have a nice length to them, and the wheelbase is a bit longer. So I think the reason that I really liked this board when I was skating it previously is because I wasn't missing my pop ever. Now, on a bunch of these boards, pretty much I've kind of noticed where the numbers kind of sit. If my nose and tail are shorter than 6.6 inches, that's kind of my sweet spot where I miss my pop a lot. So this board, being a 6.75, I liked it a lot because I never missed my pop. Tricks felt really, really good on them. I had the surface area for slides and grinds. I really liked this board, but as I skated it more, I realized that I didn't have as much control as I'd like. It wasn't as responsive. It felt kind of lethargic. It felt like it would take a second to get up to where it needed to be. And that's when I decided to move on from this board and try out other boards. That being said, I think this board is really close to what I would like. All it would really need is a shorter wheelbase for me. All right, so I actually skated two versions of this board. This is the Quasi Henry Mirror twin tail. I skated two different versions of this board. I skated the green one and the brown one, and I had the same kind of general issues on both. I really liked the green one a lot more than the brown one, but we'll get into that. This one has a wheelbase of 14.25. Nose and tail are 6.43-ish. The width is 8.375, and the length is 31.75. It's still a shorter board. The nose and the tail are extremely short, but the wheelbase is kind of in my danger zone. Anywhere between 14 and all the way up to probably 14.25 is where I kind of notice I like. Nose and tail are too short. I miss my pop all the time on this one. Same with the other version of the board, because it's only a little bit different. So the green version of this board that I skated, I don't have it. Somebody actually stole it out of the back of my truck. But the green version of this board, they had dimensions listed online, and I'm pretty sure these are made in the same mold. They just drill things slightly differently because, I mean, your differences are in 16ths, maybe even 1/4 of an inch. But based on the numbers that I extrapolated, it kind of makes sense. I liked the green one better because it had a 14.125 inch wheelbase, a 16.5 nose and tail, a width of 8.125, and a length of 31.75. And then you're cutting it to 8.1 instead of 8.3. So it's pretty much the same, but I liked that board better. I missed the pop less. I felt more responsive because of the shorter wheelbase. I just overall was a better board in my opinion, and it really bummed me out that somebody stole it because I really wanted to play with it with different trucks and things. All right, the next board is the one that I am currently riding. I've talked a little bit about this in a previous video. I'm actually just gonna give you guys some measurements on it. So this is the ishod twin tail. This is the slick variant, and it is 14.25 inch wheelbase, 6.68 nose and tail, 8.25 width, and a 31.6 length. Now they do make a smaller version of this board that I kind of wanted to try. I'm guessing they're using the same mold with that one as well. So if they make it just a hair's bit smaller, I know the wheelbase is 14. So that adds an extra 1/8 of an inch on each nose and tail to make it just a bit bigger. I do miss my pop on this board a little bit, not nearly as much because it's slightly bigger than 6.6, I'm guessing, but I could be wrong. I like this board. It's very good. I skate very good with it. It's kind of in that magic zone where like, sometimes I get phantom pop, but it works, and other times it just doesn't. It does feel lethargic, but it doesn't feel like I'm totally out of control. It's not super long. 8.25 is great for flip tricks for me. Nothing really to complain about. I think this one's really good for me. So this one, I really like the way it skates, and I really like the slick bottom. I've already talked about that. If you want to see more about that, go click on the video. Now, after taking all of that information, we're going to kind of come up with some general measurements for my perfect board. Now, the reason that this doesn't work is because depending on your truck setup, your risers setup, if you run risers, what kind of wheels you're using, what kind of board you're skating, everything, your kick angles, all this can change, and the way a board skates can be completely different. Which is why I'm going to limit this and say for indies, because I am going to be skating other trucks and things here in the future. But right now, my perfect board shape for indies. That's kind of the idea. Minus kick angle. We'll get into that in another video. But I think right where that one sits is where I would put it anyway. I'd probably want a wheelbase of like 14.1 14-ish, 125, probably 14, 125 for a wheelbase. That'll give me a bit of stability as well as responsiveness, as well as that control feeling I was talking about earlier. I kind of want to do the 6.8 on the nose and the tail. I am a twin tail guy, so that's easy, 6.8 inches. Now the width, this is where it kind of gets interesting because I like the 825 just for general use, like just for ease of use because that's what I'm used to, but the 8.5s really skate really good with flip tricks and things. The only thing is you have to pop just a little bit higher for more technical stuff, as well as you have to try a little harder. So I kind of think I want to do an in-between of an 8.25 and an 8.5. I want to do like an 8.3. And now the overall length, I do want it to be a bit shorter. The overall length is kind of pulled from all the other dimensions, so I'm actually not going to get into this one very much. But I do want it to be as short as I can get it. If I can get it to be 31.5, that's what I want. Anyway, so my perfect dimensions as of right now would be 14.25, 6.8 on the nose and tail, and an 8.3 on the width. That's kind of where I want to sit. This is also going to change when we start doing different tricks, like just for reference, my true wheelbase on the real board, so meaning the actual distance from axle to axle, is 17.25 inches. So your wheelbase gets wider or shorter depending on your trucks and the truck geometry. Your kick angle changes depending on how tall you are, like how tall your trucks are, how tall your wheels are. There's a lot of things that go into it. We're actually going to be modifying a board here shortly. I have a cool little donor board down there that's kind of got a lot of meat on it for me to play with. If you want to see that, make sure you stay tuned. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this super nerdy board shape talk. I've been thinking about modifying boards for a really long time, and I'm actually excited to like get to that point where I'm going to do it. This is going to be really interesting. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.